Hello there! Every now and then I like to put out a video where I talk about one of my favorite old movie stars, either in the form of a book review or just as a discussion of my favorite films among their work. Today's subject is Claude Rains, who I have been a fan of for many years. Claude Rains, for those who may not know, was an English actor who played a variety of different roles in American films from the early 1930s to the time of his death in the late 60s. I've seen so many of these movies that I found it too difficult to pick favorites, which is always a problem for me. So, despite what the title of the video says, this is actually a compromise I came up with, a list of 4 reasons why I love Claude Rains. Starting with number 1, for his voice. His voice is like no one else's. How something can be rough and smooth at the same time, I do not know. But his voice, the way he used it, the way he spoke, is what distinguished him from all his fellow actors, and I think there's no better example of its singular power than in The Invisible Man from 1933.
You're crazy to know who I am, aren't you? All right, I'll show you.
It's a performance that leans heavily on voice acting, as you only see his face for a few seconds at the very end, and it's astounding the impression Rains makes. It's a fascinating film to watch. I love its special effects, which I think still hold up today, and its writing, also that it has Dwight Fry in a brief scene as a persistent reporter. But for fans of Rains himself, and fans of the Universal horror classics alike, Rains' rasping, commanding, deranged performance is the principal reason to watch. Reason number 2, for his ability to pull off conflicted villains. Rains played a number of villains throughout his career, men in positions of power who make trouble for others, and have an awful lot of fun doing it. He was good at making many of those characters quite likable, but some of his most memorable bad guys are the ones who were conflicted. It's a slightly different kind of conflicted villain he plays in The Phantom of the Opera from 1943, as a mild-mannered, vulnerable violinist and composer who goes out of his mind when his music is stolen and his face disfigured. We sympathize with the grave injustice of his situation, so even when he commits unconscionable acts, we at least understand why, and wish there was a way things could work out for him. But he's not so much conflicted himself as we are conflicted in our feelings about him, so probably a better example of Rains as a conflicted antagonist is his role as a U.S. Senator in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington from 1939. He seems like a decent person at first, but it doesn't take long before we realize the truth about him. What's most striking is that he seems to realize it too, as his clash with Jimmy Stewart's fresh-faced, idealistic newcomer escalates. Rains' peace is disturbed as he adds more and more to Stewart's demoralization, and he wakens to the depths of his own corruption. Another example is his performance in Notorious from 1946. I'm not going to talk about this one as much because, firstly, I'll be reviewing it separately sometime in the future as part of my series of Hitchcock reviews. But secondly, I find it hard to talk about because the part where I believe Rains' acting makes the biggest impact is in the final scene. And talking about the final scene of a Hitchcock movie is much too risky, so I'll avoid it, except to say that his character has to make a difficult decision. And the moment when he's struck with the consequences of that decision is incredible. Reason number 3. For his viability as a romantic leading man. The romantic lead is not a role Rains played very often. I'm not sure exactly why not, whether it had to do with the fact that he was just so good in supporting roles, or if it had more to do with the studio thinking he didn't fit the leading man mold because of his height or age or appearance. As it is, I can only recall one film where he was playing the romantic lead, and that is Mr. Skeffington from 1944. Betty Davis, who famously called Rains her favorite male co-star, plays the main character in this long, frequently frustrating story of a marriage of convenience on her side and love on his. To be honest, I probably would not have enjoyed this movie much if Claude Rains wasn't in it. His character is kind and charming and gentle and patient above all, and it's absolutely nonsensical that Bette Davis's character doesn't see it. Also, Rains has some scenes with a child, and that's always a heart melter. And lastly, reason number 4, for his undeniable skill as a supporting actor. Maybe that doesn't sound like the most complimentary thing to say, that someone made a great career out of not playing the lead. But I have always found that no matter what big names he's playing opposite, Bette Davis, Humphrey Bogart, Errol Flynn, he always holds his own and frequently steals the scene. He had a way of helping shine the spotlight on the stars, making them look and act even better, while simultaneously making an indelible impression himself. The combination of that voice and a certain appeal in his expression has me always waiting to hear what witty or shrewd thing he's going to say next. 2 highlights for me in this category are first, of course, Casablanca from 1942, probably Rains' most famous film. Amid a sea of colorful supporting characters, his quips float to the top, so that along with all that Rick and Ilsa drama, his Captain Renault is one of the things people remember most. The other highlight is Now Voyager, also from 1942, the classic romance I never tire of watching. Yes, Paul Henreid is incredibly attractive in this movie, and Bette Davis is awesome, and if I ever do a list for either of them, this movie will certainly be on it, but I'm also watching it for Claude Rains' Dr. Jackwith, the understanding psychiatrist who pierces through Charlotte Vale's darkness, who becomes her mentor and the voice of conscience and common sense. He is both astute and good-humored, and his scenes often help keep the story out of melodramatic territory. This could be my favorite of all his roles. One more that I have to include: my mom would be greatly disappointed if I ended this video without talking about 4 Daughters from 1938. Rains plays the musically talented father of 4 musical daughters, who sometimes exasperate him in humorous ways. It's one of his lighter roles, though it's not a light movie all the way through, and his performance is unique, showing a side of him remarkably different from any of his other roles. There is so much memorable work from this versatile actor. Sadly, he is yet another one on my list of favorites who is often forgotten today, but it is my hope that anyone watching this video who is unfamiliar with his work will decide to check out some of the movies that I mentioned. And, of course, any of you who share my love and appreciation for Claude Rains and his movies, your comments are always welcome. Thanks for watching! Bye!